We're looking at a geopolitical showdown that is right on the edge of its boiling point. A critical deadline is just about to expire, and right now, the United States and Iran are locked in a standoff that could, honestly, explode at any minute.
So why is everyone holding their breath? Well, because what happens in the next few hours could be the difference between a very fragile peace and a full-blown war. The talk from both sides is getting more and more heated, and the stakes, they are just through the roof.
So, the big question is, what happens if this deadline comes and goes with no solution? Well, Washington has been pretty clear that there are several military options on the table. Let's dive in and take a look at what they're actually considering. Okay, first up, and this one is a big one, a massive bombing campaign. The whole idea here would be to basically cripple Iran's ability to operate. We're talking about taking out things like the power grid, major bridges, the essential stuff that keeps a country running.
Option 2 gets way more direct. This would be a super high-risk operation, probably with special forces, to go in and physically grab Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium. And that's the key stuff you need for nuclear power and, of course, for a nuclear weapon. Now, this isn't some new idea. It's been kicked around by presidents for decades. But to actually do it, that would be a huge, huge escalation.
And finally, you've got the naval option. The U.S. could launch a major offensive to take control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this is so much more than just a strip of water. Think of it like the world's most important pipeline for oil. A massive chunk of the global supply flows right through there. The goal would be to keep that oil flowing, but any fighting in that choke point could send the entire world economy into a tailspin. But it's not just about military plans. The war of words, the threats themselves, have reached a fever pitch. And the warnings coming straight from the White House at the time were, well, they were incredibly blunt.
Yeah, this is not your typical vague diplomatic language. This is a direct quote from then President Trump, and it lays out a truly devastating threat. Not some bridges, every bridge in the country. And he put a literal countdown timer on it. The message here couldn't be clearer. This wouldn't just be some targeted military strike. This was a threat to basically rewind the clock on Iran's development by an entire century. So you have to ask, what's the justification for a threat like that? Well, this quote gives us the reasoning that was offered, and you can just hear how incredibly strong that language is, calling them animals. It really frames military action as a kind of moral duty, something that has to be done to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon. So, faced with all of this, how did Iran respond? Their move was pretty unconventional. Instead of threatening back with their own military, the leadership called on its own citizens to form human chains around places like power plants. It's a tactic of nonviolent resistance, right? It's designed to create a serious moral problem for anyone planning an attack and to frame it as an attack on regular people.
But it wasn't just about public defiance. Behind the scenes, Iran put forward a formal 5-point plan to de-escalate the whole thing. And these weren't just suggestions they were floating. These were presented as their non-negotiable conditions for ending the conflict.
All right, let's walk through what they were asking for. First off, a total stop to all attacks and assassinations by the U.S. and Israel. Second, they wanted a guarantee, not just a pause, but a real system in place to make sure the fighting doesn't start up again. Third, they wanted compensation, money for the damages on their territory. Fourth, and this is a huge deal for them, they wanted formal recognition of their legal rights over the Strait of Hormuz. And finally, number 5, a demand that really widens the scope, a complete end to Israel's military operations in Lebanon. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what do you see? You see two sides with views that are so different. They're not just on different pages. It's like they're speaking two completely different languages about what peace even looks like. On one side, you've got the U.S. position, which is driven by this really simple, urgent goal. Stop them, and whatever you do, don't let them get a nuclear weapon. But on the other side, you've got Iran's very detailed list of demands about security, about money, and about getting formal recognition of their sovereignty. And that really leaves us with the million-dollar question. When one side is threatening total destruction, and the other side is handing over a list of demands they call non-negotiable, where do you even begin to find a middle ground? Is there any path to peace here at all, or is a conflict simply inevitable?